Hello everybody and welcome to round 5 of the 2022 GP4 Offline Championship. We are here at the Misano World Circuit, Marco Simoncelli, here at the Emilia-Romagna region of Italy for the San Marino Grand Prix. The first San Marino Grand Prix since 2006 and the first top class race here at Misano ever really. I am JW97 and I'm joined today by the host Yuri Marta.
Hello, it's me with my broken computer.
Yeah, for anybody who's not aware as to why it was a little bit late, why the streams came on a little bit late, because Yuri had a little bit of a glitch with his task manager, which forced him to restart his computer. But everything seems okay now. But yeah, it has been a bit of a common glitch with Yuri's computer for a little bit. That has. But anyway, as my dog commentator is already going off in the background, that's a good start.
Yay! Good session incoming then.
Indeed. Anyway, there is for starters, of course, Rob isn't here because he's off to the cinema. I think with he's hanging out with his family or friends. I can't remember exactly, but he is off. He's out for today, so that's why you're not hearing him in this session. And nobody else wanted to take the commentary range, which is why you can hear Yuri today. But also as well, one change that people may be interested to note, and one that we've kept close to our heart. McLaren have got a new livery, or a tweak to the livery, it should be said. Gone is the unpopular, as somebody branded it, taxi livery, and instead the stripes have gone and it's just now a bit of a purple with some stripes going on the back of it. This was actually created by Evan Byrne, this one was, so not me on this occasion. Yeah, some changes to it, maybe just make it a little bit more pleasant to some people's eyes. But yeah, rate it in the stream chat if you want, guys. I'll also mention it in qualifying as well. But yeah, this is McLaren's livery for the remainder of the season. No more A Better Tomorrow on the side. It's now Aaron McLaren. There's also been some added sponsors as well in the form of Vodafone coming back with the team as well. So yeah, would you say overall, Yuri, this is a better look for McLaren, or is it just all right for now?
It's better than the checkered patterns for me. I think it's a bit more aesthetically pleasing to look at, and McLaren literally doing what they did in 2015, chasing the livery in round 5.
Whilst they have a new engine as well that they've brought in. But yeah, here we are then for anybody who's never seen a DTM race here at Misano. This is what the track looks like on GP4, and it's going to be very, very exciting indeed as well. Some history about the track. Obviously, it is located in Rimini, or on the outskirts of Rimini, which is in the Emilia-Romagna region of Italy. It's not too far away from AlphaTauri's base, so technically for them, this is actually AlphaTauri's home race, and also as well for the Italians, a bit of a home race as well, because of course this track is located in Italy, not in San Marino, although it is pretty close to San Marino, it is fair to say. So already, as we were talking about McLaren, there's already a mechanical failure for Kirishima De Rosa, gearbox issue has taken care of him, and that'll be his session done with. No lap time on the board, and De Rosa already having issues in what is the first of his home races this season.
Well, that's a bit unfortunate.
It is indeed, and De Rosa pulling off to the side of the track. And did I mention purple by accident? I meant orange. He's had a little bit more orange to the side. I didn't mean purple, but anyway, that's De Rosa's session done with, and he hasn't even set a time on the board, so a little bit unfortunate there. And his car will get hoisted over the bow, and we'll get the spare car blend implemented. So while that's happening, might as well mention as well a little bit more about the circuit. It was actually opened, well, in fact, I actually can't remember when it was opened, in fact, but obviously, for anybody who is...
Come on, get the car over the fences.
Anybody who is not familiar, well, who may be familiar with this track, obviously this track is known for the races it hosts in MotoGP. I think they're trying to get it over on... I think it's getting it over to the other side of the track. Grand Prix sometimes does this as well, where it likes to send the cars over to the other side of the track.
No, don't drop it on the other cars. What's going on here?
It'll get it onto the other side of the track. I know this from Grand Prix 3. It sometimes does that as well. It's getting it over... it's just moving it over to the other side of the track. So that's that. There you go. So anyway, Misano. interesting enough, for anybody who's running, this track used to actually go around in the other direction. It used to be an anti-clockwise track, but after some pretty bad accidents, including one in 1993, where Wayne Rainey suffered a career-ending injury where he ended up breaking his neck, and as such has remained paralysed for the remainder of his life. MotoGP never came back here until 2006, when drastic changes were made to the track to bring them back, which included the track going in the other direction instead of the anti-clockwise direction, which in turn made the track a clockwise track, and of course some corners as well had to be altered as well, including some of the barriers as well to accommodate the fact that the drivers were going on the other way around the track. And the upgrade that we've got is the track that we've got nowadays. And anybody who has been watching GP4OC for quite a while will know as well that DTM have used to host races here in the past. The last time that DTM had a race on this track was back in 2019, and it has hosted some pretty exciting races for DTM. And judging from the test race from what Yuri had, apparently very successful for these cars.
Yep, basing on the test race, I think this track should have no problems whatsoever. Should be a
Indeed,
good race.
so.
Of course,
Oh.
of course, if it's dry. On the wet, well, nobody cares if there's a little bit of chaos in the wet.
We've seen so many, especially in Suzuka in the past few seasons. But yeah, it's a very, very, quite a short track, it's fair to say. Hence why the lap distance is 72 laps. And the lap times are usually around about the same sort of lap times that you would probably find, or maybe just a tad bit slower than what you'd find at the Red Bull Ring in Spielberg. So a pretty quick track, but should provide some exciting racing indeed, as Byrne is currently getting held up by one of the Williamses. In fact, the Williams is actually holding up a huge train of cars looking at Byrne's mirrors. But whilst on the topic of Evan Byrne, we might as well talk about what happened in the last race in a wet-affected Azerbaijan Grand Prix. Evan Byrne finally getting some good luck and finally getting his first victory of the season and his first with Red Bull.
Yeah, good, very dominant drive for him, and we didn't really see him too much on the race. At the first stint, his teammate managed to keep it up a little bit, but then he just ran away with it.
Indeed, as the new liveried McLaren, he's currently holding up one of the Hasses, in fact, as Quark goes up into third, that Haas being Barch's Kloss. Of course, for anybody who's only just joined and realising why we've only got 21 cars in the leaderboard, that is because Kirishima DeRosa pulled off with a mechanical failure, specifically a gearbox issue, without even setting a lap time. So already issues for McLaren, hence why Willers is the only McLaren running in this practice session. Kloss trying to get by into first corner there, but can't seem to get it to work. And we have seen overtakes at turn 1 before in DTM. Whether we'll see that with the top class, though, is going to be a question. Although, judging from what we've seen in practice, I think we're going to mainly see the overtakes coming down after the back straight, of course. And that's where I think we'll probably see most of the overtaking being done for these drivers. So, anyway, here is Armar Car. Well, we briefly looked at Armar Car. They're currently in 8th place. And I think it's fair to say that as Azerbaijan, Mercedes looked a little bit off.
Yeah, compared to Red Bull, they were a bit slower. It seemed like they didn't have the best of setup for the wet conditions, and they were a bit off in the dry as well during qualifying. Armar didn't have the best of performances, losing out to Roman Guak in the end, and well, the less said about Lopez, the better.
Yeah, indeed. That was a pretty horrendous error there from Franco Lopez. Basically getting it all crossed up at the castle section and ending up crashing right at the exit, which in turn has allowed his teammate Armar Car to retake the lead in the Drivers' Championship by 11 points. So far this season, they've kind of been swapping places in the first 4 races when it comes to leading the championship. So in theory, you would think that Lopez would try and retake the lead in the championship after this race, but who really knows, really? But speaking of Lopez, he's currently at the top of the timing screens. We're looking at Chris Chatfield now for Ferrari. They're probably going to have a lot of support for the Tifosi here, of course. But yeah, this will be the first of 2 home Grand Prix. And oddly enough, this is actually the first time since 2012 that the GP4 OC fraternity has had 2 races in the same country. The last time, of course, as mentioned, was back in 2012 when we had 2 races in Spain. One at the Circuit de Barcelona Catalonia and the other at the very unpopular Valencia Street Circuit, which hosted the European Grand Prix. But yeah, this is also the first time that we've had...
wasn't too bad in GP4 though.
True, but the track is still very unpopular, it's fair to say, with the general public. So,
I
yeah,
mean,
that's that.
I mean, it looks a bit bad, and of course, in real life, it's been destroyed ages ago. In the OC, it
Yeah.
could appear one day.
It could, because that rule doesn't apply to us. I mean, Formula E have already taken a visit to Valencia after the top class did. I think in 2017, I think it was, they took a visit to Valencia. But if anybody remembers that race, it didn't really go that well because I had a little bit of an issue with the pit lane, really, which forced a red flag and basically the race to be in two parts. So, yeah, and that's the only time that the OC fraternity's been to Valencia after the top class went. So, yeah, that's pretty much that. But now we've got a country hosting two races this season, that being courtesy of Italy, and this one, of course, revamping, bringing back the San Marino Grand Prix name, which we haven't seen since 2006. And I think it's safe to say, Yuri, I think this track should be better than what Imola produced back in 2006.
That doesn't require much, though.
True, to be fair, though. Although the new Imola, from what we saw with the DTM testing, has proven to be a lot better than what the old Imola has. So, I don't know if that's a DTM thing or it could be a general thing in general. But, yeah, that's pretty much that, as Joseph Willows has just come back out onto the track, right in the middle of an Alfa Romeo and a Ferrari here. But as mentioned, this is sort of AlphaTauri's home race because their base in Faenza is not too far away from this circuit. And they do often do a bit of testing at not just Imola, but also here as well at Misano. So they'll be hoping to do well here as well. As Chatfield just gets by there. And as mentioned, I think we're probably going to see most of the overtakes in the race coming at that corner that we just passed there, that hairpin. So that's one... Or maybe even here, because I am also aware from watching DTM as well that if you get enough of an overlap down that back straight before you enter into that triple right-hander, I think it is. It is a triple right-hander, just double check there. No, in fact, it's a quadruple right-hander, isn't it? If you get an overlap just before you enter that part, then you should be able to pull off the overtake pretty easily through into that corner. So that could be something interesting. Maybe even into turn one as well, if you've got a good enough car that can do that. But so far, I haven't seen anybody attempt trying to go for the overtake into the corners. Macho gets it all crossed up through into turn two. As also going, so on the topic of what we saw at Azerbaijan as well, and whilst we're running on board with Haas, so far it's safe to say Haas have had a very good start to the season, and people already noticing they've already got a comfortable gap to Ferrari in the constructors.
Yeah, it's been more that Haas has been surprisingly consistent with having at least one car finishing up really high. In terms of the Ferrari, I think both of their drivers have been underperforming a bit, but if they get their act together, I think, as we saw, I think Ferrari's got a podium already.
Have indeed with Jake Galloway at the Chinese Grand Prix, so they can. It just really needs the right sort of track for them to really be to score some very high points. In terms of possibly getting a victory this season for Ferrari, given what we've seen from them, might be a little bit tricky, but we shall see. Of course, things can happen in racing, and it usually does. As we look at Byrne, who's currently 500ths off his personal best in the middle sector there. And so I would say that this track is more of a downforce track, more than a high-speed track, because although we do have a few long straights here, they've all got corners in the middle, which you obviously need a lot of downforce for. And we know that, judging from Azerbaijan, we do believe that the Red Bull is probably the best in a straight line compared to the Mercedes. But I would say, when it comes to downforce, I think the Mercedes has got the edge on the Red Bull.
Could be. Of course, it also depends on what kind of setup are the teams going for in any specific race or qualifying. It's always a bit up there. Sometimes you can see that a certain team just appears with more heavy on the straight line speed or more heavy on the corners, and sometimes it goes really well and sometimes it goes really poorly. We remember Mercedes Q3 in 2020 France when their dominant car was nowhere.
Yes, indeed, and yeah, it was really, really off the pace there. So yeah, it could really take one bad session really for them to to really fall back on as Evan Byrne comes into the pits as we look at Jamie Griffiths in the Williams. And I think it's safe to say, and you've been had your say on this as well, but it's safe to say for both Jamie Griffiths and Amelia Wilson this season, for the pair of them, it's been a very disastrous start to the season.
Yeah, to start with Jamie, he's struggled with pace all of the season so far. Like, not even because of the car, like, we know the car they have produced this season just it's struggling on corners and it's hard to drive. Griffiths has been off the pace from his teammate as well, quite a lot. I think he can still improve. In terms of Amelia, of course, her car is a bit of a downgrade compared to Haas, which she was in last season. In terms of pace, she has been good, but she's been overdriving and causing accidents, which has really showed in her results.
Yeah, indeed, and from memory, I think she retired from the previous 3 races so far. She's only finished once, as we finally get an overtake into the first corner, courtesy of Jake Galloway there on Jamie Griffiths into the first corner there. And so far, the Williams is 20th and 21st at the moment. So far, having a very disastrous season, and it's arguably that this car is arguably worse than what they had last season. At the moment, they're still the only team so far this season to score a point in 2022. All the other 10 teams have scored at least 1 point, including Aston Martin, who have also gone backwards this season. And in terms of what happened at Baku, of course, on the topic of Aston Martin, well, that's a race they'll want to forget. Both getting taken out on the first lap. Martin's getting taken out at turn 1, and Verderi being involved in that massive pile-up that happened down at turn 3.
Yeah, they didn't have a chance to show anything, so don't know if they should have done something in the wet.
Indeed so, as we now look at Chris Chatfield now then. He's just making his way around the double right-hander. Currently in P4 and 5 so far for the Ferrari, so of course this is only practice, but so far looking at some very good pace around here at Misano, and could actually be a little bit higher on the grid than what we've been used to seeing them so far throughout the season. Well, they really need to get some more points on the board, because as mentioned a little bit earlier on, Ferrari are down in 5th place in the Constructors' Championship, and from memory, they're actually 15 points behind Haas at the moment, who have had an amazing start, and another team that also carries the Ferrari engine. And given that they are behind a Ferrari-powered team in the Championship, I don't think that will bode well for Ferrari at the moment, so they'll be wanting to try and rectify that as best as possible throughout the season, as Chatfield making his way out of the hairpin and making his way into the final couple of the corners. He will go now then, as Chatfield now then. I don't think he's going to improve on this occasion, as he's now crossing the line, and yep, does not improve, and he stays where he is at the moment, which is P number 5, just behind teammate Jake Galloway. Of course, again, for anybody who's just tuned in, of course, the reason why we've only had 21 cars set a lap is because Kirishima De Rosa broke down before he even got a chance to finish his lap with a gearbox problem, and as a result, his session is already over, and we won't see him in the session again until a little bit later on. So his running here around here at Misano has been cut short. Trying to think off the top of my head if any of these drivers have ever raced around Misano via DTM. I'm pretty sure Flo may know, because he's in the stream chat. Trying to think, because I know the last time they raced here DTM was actually back in 2019, and trying to see if there was anybody on that 2019 grid that I can remember. I think Roman Quarg has. Yes, Quarg has been in the has raced here before, so he's got a little bit more knowledge of this track than what most of the field has. I think Barch's Kloss has also raced around here as well, because he was in DTM for a few seasons before he went to World Champ Car. So Kloss and Quarg have got experience around here. Anyone else on that grid is what's going on? So, a problem there for one of the Alfa Romeos, and that is a transmission problem. It's Amelia Wilson.
Electrical.
It's electrical, but either way. Yep, so she's very lucky there that she was coming into the pits that lap anyway, so they can get that prepared and repaired, and that she can make her way back.
Driven here, apparently.
Rao is driven around here. I Yes, he has. In fact, he actually raced here in DTM. So a few guys on the grid have got experience of racing around here at Misano in DTM. So there's that. As car getting held up by one of the Alpha Towers and having trouble getting by the driver into the first couple of the corners. I think that's David Kupok he's getting held up by. Kupok, also on the topic of him, as car just about gets by on that Williams that just came out of the pits. As Byrne now goes up into second place, splitting the two Mercedes. As car, whilst we were talking, went to the top of the timing screens with a 1 minute 8.380. But on the topic of David Kupok, I mean, so far, despite a rough start to the season, the last couple of races, he's been on real good form at the moment, picking up some very solid points.
You were talking. Who were you talking about? I was looking at the chat.
The guy that we're viewing at the moment, David Kupok.
Yeah, Kupok hasn't been bad. I think last few races, of course, been better than his teammate. Of course, he did start out quite poorly in Australia with that fight to the death match with Kloss. Was it?
Yes, indeed. And Kiero's just mentioned that he's also raced around here. So that's at least 4 people we know that have raced here before in DTM. So they've obviously got a little bit of experience of this racetrack. It's Amelia Wilson on Discord, Hyan, if you were just curious as to who she was. But anyway, it's Mocho now then making his way towards the triple right-hander. 1/10 down on his personal best and getting held up by the Renault in front of him. It's fair to say so far, if I was to judge the 2 Renaults this season, apart from the victory that Jesus Perinen has had, I would say that Quark's been had the measure of Jesus so far this season.
Quark's been amazing this season, in my opinion, so far. Bit similar to last season, he started off really strong. Of course, no victory, but in terms of the performance, you feel like he's getting near the maximum out of the car every single week.
Indeed so. I think the one issue that Renault have had so far this season is a bit of inconsistency of both drivers. As Mocho at the moment going through into turn number, turn number 6 that was there. As Armar Car goes a little bit quicker on 1 minute 8.345. But as I was saying, the one issue that Renault have so far had this season has really been the consistency really. Because whilst one driver is usually qualified particularly well, the other has seemed to have struggled throughout the season. And we did mention this during pre-season testing, that could be an Achilles tendon for Renault this season, and so far it's been proven that to be the case so far with both drivers.
Yeah, the car seems to have a window of optimal performance where they can even be close to the Mercedes and Red Bull, but if they don't hit that window, they are right in there with the other top midfield cars.
Indeed so. We're now looking at Felix Sontag, who's currently holding up Joseph Willows in the new liveried, or the updated liveried McLaren, as I will put it. Again, this one was edited by Evan Byrne, not me this time, so credits to Evan on that one. As Willows now then making his way into the section of corners, as so far currently in 13th place. As car further improves, 1 minute 8.272. Fair to say with McLaren, whilst they have been got some good race pace, qualifying has been a real pain for them this season, it's fair to say. And, so far they've only scored 8 points this season, which is not really good considering they were expecting quite a lot with BMW going into this season.
Yeah, when you come up with a new engine manufacturer and you have to change the car to adapt to the new engine. I think it's not the engine being a poor choice. It's the first season with a new engine and the modification they have had to do to the car to fit the new engine might be what's hurting them out there. They have really had a difficult time turning up into qualifying, especially.
Yep, and they've had to make up all that ground during the race, although it was only De Rosa that got a very lucky point in Baku last time round after what happened with Michael Mocho during that race. He was looking like he was going to get a very strong finish until his engine decided to die on him.
Yeah, actually, when you look at Haas, you might think that they might have a bit of concerns with reliability.
Yeah, indeed, and that's despite having a quick car, it just seems like that could be something that's holding him back a little bit from getting a lot more points. As one of the Lamborghinis there gets by on Andre Verderi, that being Rahul Patel. Who, on the topic of Patel, it's fair to say it's just we talked about how Wilson and Griffiths have had a disastrous start to the season. I think Patel could be put in that conversation.
Um, yeah, we definitely can because he's had an incident-filled season, and it's only race 5 coming up. So he just needs to keep his head cool in the car, and
Yeah.
and the results should come with that.
And Wilson having a bit of a lockup going through into turn one there, but luckily not going straight on. And I'll tell you what, I'll be very fascinated about how the start plays out because it is a bit of a narrow run into the first few turns. Really, I mean there is a little bit of obviously runoff on the right hand side, but knowing the GP4 AI, that I don't think they're going to opt to go for the. So it'd be very interesting to see if there's any incidents at the start of the race, that is for sure. As we ride on board with Loa Chung, a little bit of a lockup, but interestingly enough, Chung has scored points in every race so far, and given that it's safe to say Lamborghini have gone a little bit backwards this season, she's been doing a very good job in that car at the moment, getting the most that she can.
Yeah, being pretty quick and consistent. Lamborghini this season seems to have definitely focused on developing the reliability of the car instead of the pace. They went really aggressive on their first season, you could see with the results, but also with so many failures in the car. Now they seem to have a more reliable car, but went a bit back in the pace. But Chang, with her experience, has definitely showed that she's able to fight for good positions every single race.
Indeed so, and so far, as mentioned, she's been the only one to get points so far. Well, not the only one. She's been able to get points in every single race so far. Whether that can continue here at Misano is another question, as Sontag having to back off there because somebody was coming into the pit, and it allowed the Aston Martin there of, I think that was Johannes Martin, to get by, although Sontag may want to try and get him back into the first corner, but decides not to on occasion. It was Verderi, in fact, not Martins. I do apologise for that. But anyway...
Yeah, that pit lane is an opportunity to make a sneaky overtake. If you
memory, yeah, I was just going to say, I think from memory, DTM had a similar thing as well. So it's kind of similar in a way to what we have in Austin.
Yeah.
So yeah, and also
that's a bit more rare.
Yes, indeed. And also, one thing that Flo even pointed out in the stream chat is that the pit exit, it is a very, very long pit lane. The pit exit detection line for turning off the pit limiter is a little bit further down the pit exit. I think it's like in between the right and left-hander of the pit exit, I believe, from what I remember. So it is going to take the drivers a while to get out of to really be on the pit limiter in this track. But yeah, so that could be very interesting to keep an eye on, especially in the races.
Yep.
As Chung now then currently in between I would say an Italian sandwich, but the Alfa Romeo team is classed as a Swiss team. But I guess for them it's sort of a home race because it is Alfa Romeo at the end of the day, and the Lamborghini is also it's their home race as well. So a bit of an Italian show off through into this part of the track, and obviously the Italian team's looking to do well here at Misano as best as they can. There's Chung now then just going around the section of corners, and now heading into the final 3 corners goes Loa Chung. And as we now ride on board with Evan Byrne, who's trying to have a go at one of the Ferraris into the first corner, but can't seem to get the move done. But obviously we talked about how Evan Byrne, of course, won the race last time out in Baku, but it seems that from that last race, Red Bull starting to get their act together now, obviously getting the first 1-2 finish of the season compared to all the other teams, and they've now clawed back a lot of the points that they lost out to Mercedes in the first 3 races. Roke and Byrne not too far away now from the 2 Mercedes in the Drivers' Championship, and also Red Bull are not too far away from them in the Constructors' Championship now.
Yeah, it's looking like to be a good title fight out here this season again. Looking at the Red Bull, you really need to think Byrne was dominating the Australian GP before hitting the lap car of Patel. Rogue was dominating the Korean GP before getting hit out by a backmarker, and now Byrne dominated the Azerbaijan GP, and Rogue was also quite far away from the other teams. So it seems like when they get their act together, they can be unbeatable on track.
Yeah, indeed, and well, it'll be interesting to see if that's the case here at Misano, because at the moment it seems that the Mercedes have got a little bit more pace in this practice session, but of course we still need to get through qualifying first before we can draw any form of conclusion on that one. Obviously they run more fuel loads, higher fuel loads, of course, in practice than what they do in qualifying. So obviously, when we get to qualifying, of course, the lap time's obviously going to be a lot more faster. But anyway, the two Alfa Romeos look like they're giving each other a little bit of slipstream as we look at Benz Valdinga in the second Alfa Romeo. And so far, the only Alfa to get the points this season for the team, despite as a result of the team going a little bit backwards when it comes to performance-wise. But even Valdinga himself this season has had a few moments where you're like, yeah, he's had a little bit of off moments, especially in Baku, where he just seemed to be nowhere in the race.
Yeah, while Wilson has been fast but accident prone, Valdinger has been less accident prone but also had some quite bad performances pace wise.
Yeah, and obviously Valdinga, of course, as mentioned, the only person to score points for Alfa Romeo this season, and Wilson will be hoping that she can get some points on the board here. I mean, she was challenging for points, of course, at Korea before she made that costly error where she ended up crashing into the wall whilst fighting De Rosa for that final points place, and obviously ended up having a crash with Jamie Griffiths in the last race at Baku as well.
Was also close on points then.
Yes, she was indeed. Griffiths as well. I mean, even before that point, it was a disastrous race for him because not only did he end because of a crash, he also had a mechanical failure. Well, he obviously lost his front wing in the first part of the race, and then he ended up having a mechanical failure, which he was forced to come back into the pit as a result, which then put him a lap down. So for him, really, it was just a race to forget for Jamie Griffiths. And coming over here to the first European race of the season, he'll be hoping to try and get a good result here in the car, despite the fact that the Williams this season is not clearly a good car this season. It's fair to say it's definitely clear that they've gone backwards compared to last season. As we now look at Armar car, who's just getting by on Andre Verderi into this left-hander, where, as mentioned, we're probably going to be seeing most of the overtakes being done in the race tomorrow. And so at the moment then, with just over 9 minutes to go, this is what the leaderboard currently looks like then. It is Carr at the top with Byrne in second, Lopez in third, by the way, Quag in fourth, then Galloway in fifth with Chatfield in sixth, Roke in seventh, Macho eighth, then Perrin in ninth, Gall in 10th, Kupok in 11th with Willows in 12th, Kloss in 13th, followed by Chung in 14th, Patel 15th, Valdinga in 16th, followed by Martins in 17th, then Federi in 18th, Wilson 19th, Griffiths 20th, Sontod 21st, and of course De Rosa is 22nd and last due to the fact that he will not set a time in this session due to breaking down quite early on in the session before he could even finish off his lap. So that's that really, as now we look at David Kupok, who's coming up behind one of the Lamborghinis, as Roke now trying to get by on the Haas into the first corner there, but can't seem to get it to work through into there. Roke as well, it looks like it's safe to say compared to last season, I think Roke is so far having a much better season than what he had in 2021.
Yeah, the win is missing though, but now he hasn't had as poor of a season, and looks like he can actually challenge for things this time around. Seems like he was just struggling adapting to the team last season.
Yep, indeed, and he'll be looking to see if he can maybe try and get a victory here at Misano and finally get that win he's been waiting for at Red Bull. Of course, his last win, of course, came at the 2020 German Grand Prix when he was racing for Racing Point, and so that will be interesting to see. Roke now then, he's just at the final sector now then of the racetrack. He'll soon be coming up to the final two corners. Here's the penultimate turn, which is a bit flat out, and in fact he's coming into the pits this time by Macho getting held up there a little bit because of Roke going in there, so he had to back off a little bit there, but he was already down in his personal best anyway, as Macho currently P8 at the moment in this session. Teammate Kloss down in 13th, unlucky for some, I guess. But anyway, as meanwhile, Valdinger is coming in and still stuck behind teammate Wilson at this stage. Gal currently 10th, so 10th and 11th for AlphaTauri in their home race. This circuit basically being on their backyard essentially, because they're not too, as mentioned, their base is not too far away from this circuit. As both of them now, in fact both Alfa Romeos came into the pits this time by, so it wasn't just Valdinger coming in, it was also Wilson. But anyway, Roman Quarg, here he is, currently 4th place at the moment. So far having a pretty strong session in the Renault. Who knows if he's probably going to be able to get a victory this season like his teammate Jesus Perinen has. So that'll be interesting to keep an eye on there. Perinen currently down in 9th, so far again, Renault having a little bit of a consistency issue when it comes to having their drivers very close to each other when it comes to pace-wise. So I wonder if that's going to be the case going into qualifying or not. But anyway, Quarg is coming into the pits at the end of this lap as we have just under 6.5 minutes to go in this practice session before we get on to qualifying, which will determine the grid for the first San Marino Grand Prix since 2006. And Quarg now then making his way into the double right-hander as now Mocho through into turns 3. He goes now then, and then into turns 4 and 5. And we now look at Chung, who's having a bit of a moment going into that first corner, but lucky to able to correct the car there. But we are seeing a lot of lockups, it's fair to say, around this racetrack. So clearly brakes is a little bit of a talking point around here.
Yeah, drivers just trying to find the fine limit of the track. Especially with braking zones, and small lockups here and there won't hurt anybody.
Indeed so, and as Chung now then just coming up towards the next double right-hander, which will take her onto this very, very long back straight, as it were. I mean, there's actually 2 back straights. There's one which where that overtaking zone is, I mentioned earlier, and this one which takes you onto the quadruple right-hander here. Here's the first one, then the second one, and then into the third one before heading into the fourth one, which is a hairpin. And so heading through that hairpin and now into the final couple of corners. We will go. Chung will be finishing her lap. Of course, her lap was already ruined because of the fact that she made the mistake coming out the corner that Mocho has just gone by. Lopez, meanwhile, has further improved but remains in 3rd position, not able to make it a Mercedes 1-2 at this stage. Just realised that Roke is currently down in 7th in this session, so not exactly ideal, given teammate Bernie is currently up in 2nd place, splitting the 2 Mercedes drivers. Mocho coming into the pits at the end of this lap for Haas. And so I wonder if that'll be his session done with, as we have just over 4.5 minutes to go in this session, as Mocho coming towards the double right-hander there, flicks it in, and now making his way towards that quadruple right-hander, as just under 4.5 minutes to go now then in this session, as we're getting close to the qualifying session, which could be very interesting, especially given the length of the track. I think, could there be a chance perhaps that there could be quite a lot of traffic during qualifying, Yuri?
Definitely a chance. Of course, traffic has been, like at any track, traffic can be a thing, but I think there is a good chance drivers are getting held up.
Indeed, and just trying to sort something out, Yuri, so just bear with for the moment. Back as meanwhile we're looking at Joseph Willows now then, who's looking all over the back of the Alfa Romeo there, that being who is that? It's either well, in fact both of them I think are out on track for what I can see on the timing screens. But anyway, we're just under 3 minutes to go as Roke's currently getting held up by one of the Ferraris. This is what the leaderboard currently looks like then. Car at the top with Bernie in 2nd, Lopez 3rd, Quarg in 4th, Galloway in 5th. Then it is Chatfield in 6th, so 5-6 for the 2 Ferraris, followed by Roke in 7th, Macho in 8th, Perrin in 9th, Gal in 10th, Qpok is in 11th, followed by Willow's 12th, Kloss in 13th, then it is Chung 14th, Patel 15th, so Lamborghini's not having the best of sessions at the moment. Make that 13th now for Patel, because he's just improved. Kloss 14th, Chung 15th, Valdinger in 16th, Martins in 17th, Videri 18th, Wilson 19th, Griffiths 20th, Sontag 21st, and of course De Rosa not setting a time because of the mechanical failure he had earlier on in the session. Roke not up on his personal best by nearly 3/10 of a second going through that middle sector, and probably getting a little bit of dirty air from the Ferrari of Chris Chatfield in front of him. So anyway, Roke now then through into the final couple of corners he goes, and I think we're going to ride on board with the drivers for the remainder of the session. Sontag's just finished, he's just come into the pits. Martins, no improvement, he stays where he is at the moment. I think Quag will do enough to finish, to start at least one more flying lap. Macho goes out onto the racetrack now then, as we now look at Wilson, who's in fact I think has got a car in front, that being Evan Byrne. Across the line he goes, doesn't improve. Wilson across the line, she doesn't improve, nor does Galloway. Lopez improves but stays in third, only closes the gap between himself and Byrne. Gal doesn't improve. Griffiths will get one, well in fact 2 flying laps I think he'll get before the session comes to a close, as now Videri running the final turn himself. Very quick final corners for SA, a medium speed corner. Videri across the line, no improvement, he stays where he is. Patel across the line, goes up to 8th, a big improvement there, so gets his Lamborghini into the top 10. Looks like Quag will get one flying lap in before the session comes to a close. Armar Car is not up on his personal best, currently still on a 1 minute 8.272 in this session. As now coming across the line now, then comes Armar Car in the Mercedes, no improvement, stays where he is. Here comes Bence Valdinger now, then across the line he goes in the Alfa Romeo. He crosses the line, no improvement. Joseph Willows, no improvement for him either. David Qpok now then comes across the line in the Alfa Tauri, no improvement, as Martins is finished for the day. Chatfield, I wouldn't be surprised if he got held up a little bit by Martins, but let's see. Chatfield across the line and no improvement. Same for Roke. As Byrne currently not on an improvement at the moment, currently second place at the moment, splitting 2 Mercedes drivers. Byrne round the final turn and onto the pit straight now then. As Byrne now then crosses the line, no improvement, stays where he is. Wilson across the line, she will go, and she doesn't improve. Galloway doesn't improve, nor does Lopez. Gal doesn't improve. Griffiths on an improvement, but can he get anywhere near Amelia Wilson? Across the line he goes, and in fact he can. He's actually just 12 thousandths off, and now goes into 20, or stays in 20th position, I should say. Videri coming across the line, so 10, 9, and then we will have 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, and then 3, 2, 1, and 0, and the checkered flag is out. That's the end of the session. I think who was that last across the line? Was it Patel? I can't remember. It was Patel who crossed the line last. Quag didn't improve on that lap car, remains on a 1 minute 8.272. Here comes Bence Valdinger in the Alfa Romeo as he just comes out of the final turn, and across the line he will go. No improvement, stays where he is. Willows is done for the day, done for this session. In fact, he'll be back later on for qualifying. Q-Park doesn't improve. Here comes Chris Chatfield in the Ferrari, currently in 6th position, and across the line he will go, and no improvement, stays where he is. Roke doesn't improve. Macho's on an improvement, but loses time in the last sector and remains in 9th position. Byrne coming around the final couple of the corners. We saw that Patel was able to improve a little bit further, but remained in 8th position. Evan Byrne crosses the line, no improvement. Here comes Jake Galloway. Looks like no improvement for him as he will cross the line now then. He's way off the pace. I wonder if he's made a mistake. Whoa! Someone's lost their rear wing. In fact, that's an Alfa Romeo that's lost the rear wing. Now, oh, that might explain why Galloway was way off the pace, because he's made a mistake through into the S's, and I think it could be a little bit of a dangerous read. In fact, no, it was Wilson that went off the track, and oh, the Mercedes careered into the back of Wilson there, and it was Lopez that got damaged there. So yeah, we have seen mistakes in the past there in DTM, and I wouldn't be surprised if that's going to be a common trait during the race as well. I know the mistake rate is up on this session, I know that for a fact, but still won't surprise me if we get to see some mistakes from into that corner during the race. Gal's now into the pits. Here comes Jamie Griffiths now then across the line, no improvement. Chung just getting some mileage in the Lamborghini. Videri now then rounds the final turn, and across the line he will go in the Aston Martin. And no, in fact, he does improve. Found some time in the last sector, and I think that's that really, because I don't think I think Patel's come in, hasn't he? Because Quag was actually behind Patel on the track, so I think that's that then really. So yeah, Patel's finished his lap, so there you have it. Then that is practice done with car top, Byrne in second, and Lopez in 3rd position. So far, advantage Mercedes at the moment, Yuri.
Yeah, good practice for especially Arvo car.
Yep, indeed. Whether he can continue on to qualifying, we'll have to wait and see. Well, we're just going to take a brief pause for the moment, and then we'll come back with a fresh stream for qualifying. But in the meantime, I'm JW97. He's been Yuri, and we'll see you in just a little bit for the qualifying session. See you in a bit.